Hey guys, it's Mandals, here to ask, out of all the countless amounts of legendaries in Gen 5, which ones are the most overpowered? Let me tell you guys, this series is really giving me a run for my money. I knew Gen 5 would be a hard topic to tackle considering how many Pokemon were newly released at this time, but wow. Not only are there a ton of legendary Pokemon in Gen 5, but they are so neck and neck to one another. That being said, this video might contain some controversy. I've done a lot of research and put a lot of thought into this video, but even so, some of you guys might find yourselves disagreeing with this list. If that's the case, leave a comment down below telling me why you disagree, and I will read it with an open mind. If you guys are new to the series, be sure to click whatever I decide to put here to catch up with the previous entries. There are also a few rules and disclaimers regarding this series that I left in the description if you want to brief yourself on that. Anyways, Gen 5, we've got fusions, genies, robot bugs, and much more, but ultimately, which one is the most overpowered? Let's find out. Roll the video. Number 10, Tornadus Therian. Oh yeah, funny story, not only are there a ton of legendary Pokemon in this generation, but a lot of these guys had different forms. Tornadus' Therian form is one of the Pokemon among this pile. In the original Black and White games, Tornadus' Genie form wasn't exactly the best thing in town. It was powerful, sure, but for a legendary, it left us feeling quite underwhelmed. Fortunately, in Black and White 2, this avian monstrosity swooped in and won over our hearts. Or at least the hearts of competitive battlers. So what separates this bird form from the Genie one? For starters, Therian Tornadus is faster, which allows for more effective use of Stab Hurricanes, which sure can be a pretty luck-based move, but if it does land, it'll rip foes apart. Next, Therian Tornadus gets the Regenerator ability, which heals 1/3 of your HP upon switching out. And if you've ever played Pokemon competitively, I shouldn't have to tell you why this is great. Pros switch out Pokemon a lot. This also means it can heal from damage caused by Stealth Rocks, which is a great final touch. Number 9, Landorus. Up next is Landorus, and while the Pokemon's Therian form is great and all with its awesome Cloud feat, man, I ought to get me a pair of those, Landorus' standard form is honestly just a little bit better. So why does this Genie receive the upper hand over its Fursona counterpart? After all, Therian Landorus does have the superior attack stat. Regular Landorus, however, has more well-rounded stats and is better at handling more situations. Landorus also has the speed to dish out damage, while Therian form more or less doesn't. When it comes to wonderful qualities that the two Pokemon share, Stab Earthquake is a good start, and let's not overlook Landorus' move pool, which is as vast as the amount of legendary Pokemon in this frickin' generation. If you're not happy with Landorus' current speed, you can square up with Rock Polish, and if you want more attack, spam that Swords Dance. U-Turn and Stone Edge are a couple other moves that this Pokemon has access to as well. Just watch out for ice moves, and I guarantee this Pokemon will do work. Number 8, Keldeo. You know, people often forget that this quadruped trio is actually a quartet, which is actually a real shame because Keldeo is simply too awesome to be overlooked. That, and it's hella cute. So why, in that case, does this My Little Pony Pokemon make it onto an overpowered list? Simple. Along with that cute visage hides an overwhelming arsenal of pure overpowered, power. In other words, Keldeo is just as good, and in some regards better, than that of his brethren. For example, Keldeo absolutely skewers opponents with its 129 base special attack. That and its big-ass horn. Keldeo is fast even, which, do I really need to explain to you the benefits of having a high speed stat? And with that being said, we can pretty easily determine that Keldeo is one of those brute force kind of Pokemon. Status moves are so last year for Keldeo. Unless you're referring to Calm Mind. Keldeo will gladly spam that shit. Lastly, Keldeo's move pool is overall pretty weak, but its fantastic water fighting combo almost fully makes up for this. Number 7, Tarakion. Speaking of the mythical horse quartet, here's another member of the bunch for you, Tarakion. And while this big lug might seem like just a fatter, clunkier cousin of Keldeo, Tarakion is an absolute monster battler. I mean, duh, right? I shouldn't have to tell you that when it has a name that makes it sound like a Greek god. Enough showing off though. On the battlefield, you'll find that Tarakion is uncannily similar to Keldeo, but with high attack instead of special attack. They even have the same base speed. Just switch these two bad boys around and bam! You've got a Tarakion. A notable difference, however, is Tarakion isn't nearly as limited as Keldeo in its move pool. This Pokemon can tear you to shreds with Close Combat, Stone Edge, X-Scissor, Sacred Sword, Earthquake, and much more. And since it's already fast like its unicorn bro, a Choice Band is fair game and cranks up Tarakion's attack dial by an insane amount. Come on, you get the picture now. These guys aren't hard to figure out. They hit super hard, end of story. Number 6. Kirin Black. Man, when the first black and white games were released, it really seemed like Kirin got the short end of the stick. It was underwhelming as a legendary Pokemon and also pretty forgettable. So it's fortunate that these games' sequels took Kirin and Zekrom and introduced to us this fusion. Sorry, just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Okay, so I'm undoubtedly biased when it comes to these two Pokemon. To me, they're overcomplicated abominations, but even I realize that their power is incredible. Kirin Black is only a tad weaker than the white variation. Both have an absurd 170 base attack, but white's is special while black's is physical. The problem with Kirin Black being a physical attacker is that this severely limits the moves it can use. It's basically limited to Fusion Bolt and Outrage. But hey, those moves still get some serious work done, and the Pokemon stats are still all around fantastic. That being said, it's hard to not classify this gross science experiment as overpowered. Number 5. Reshiram. Moving on to a Pokemon whose design I actually like, Reshiram takes our number 4 spot. Now, I've mentioned before how it's Reshiram's elegance that wins me over. However, even though this Pokemon is majestic as f***, that doesn't mean that it's afraid to whoop some butt every now and then. How is this possible, you may ask? Well, Exhibit A is the Pokemon's monstrous stats. 150 base special attack and other good stats all around make Reshiram an ideal battler. The only thing that it's slightly lacking is speed, but we're gonna overlook that, especially since Reshiram can use Tailwind and Choice Scarfs are a thing as well. One of Reshiram's biggest assets is its access to Stab, Fire, and Dragon moves. With this bonus, Reshiram can torch everything with relative ease. On top of that, if Reshiram is exposed to Sunny Day, its Blue Flare will do more damage than whatever killed the dinosaurs. In conclusion, Reshiram, like most legendaries, has immense move coverage. It can even heal itself with Roost. Reshiram gets the whole package. Number 4. Thunderous. After looking at the numbers for some time, it was pretty easy to come to the conclusion that Thunderous is the best of the 3 Genie Pokemon, as well as the 3 alternative Genie forms.
Oh shit, did I say he's the best Genie? I meant to say spoiler alert, Thunderous is definitely the best Genie.
Anywho, what makes this zappy Cloud Dweller so overpowered? He's not even one of them fancy schmancy Therian forms. It's because Thunderous Incarnate has high special attack and an amazing ability. However, before you go politely correcting me, telling me that Therian form has more special attack, you should know that it also has less speed, making it much less useful. That and the standard form has Prankster, which beautifully gives priority to all status moves. This lets Thunderous pull off lightning fast taunts and Thunder Waves, which is painfully annoying for your opponent, but beneficial to no end for you. Thunderous has status moves, hard-hitting special moves, and most importantly, a sweet mustache. Number 3. Kirin White. Kirin White, while equally disgusting looking, is actually significantly better than Kirin Black. You might be skeptical about that after hearing how many similarities the white version shares with the black, but it's these little differences that give Kirin White a slight edge over Kirin Black. Look, I promise, if it was an attractiveness contest, Kirin White wouldn't be winning. This thing's convoluted design makes me retch every time I look at it. But ultimately, those numbers don't lie, so I'm gonna refrain from making fun of this Pokemon before it reduces me down to nothing more than a crater. Like I said before, Kirin Black is a physical attacker, which leaves his superior brother here with being a special attacker. As a result, you can be a lot more creative with Kirin White. Earth Power, Shadow Ball, and Focus Blast are just a fraction of the moves that become viable when using Kirin White. Its defenses are opposite of Kirin Black's as well, which makes the Mon slightly more versatile. I still hate looking at it though. Number 2. Zekrom. Alright, now we're at the point in the video where I take half of the previous entries, fuse them into one entity, and remove all of the flaws that they had to begin with. Yes, this is the best way I found fit to describe our number 2 spot, Zekrom. Zekrom has a myriad of physical and special attack, a defense number that has no right being next to an attack that high, and on top of that, a versatile move pool. Its speed is the only thing kinda holding it back, but it doesn't even really do that. Its speed is fine. Even if Zekrom gets outsped, it'll tank whatever hits it most likely. I'm pretty sure I don't have to tell you what happens after that, but I will anyways. He electrocutes you into oblivion so hard that it kills your entire family. But nah, seriously, this Pokemon hits hard. It doesn't take a college degree to figure that out. Just look at the numbers. They're really big. Those aren't small numbers, they're big ones. Moving on. Number 1. Genesect. Last but certainly not least is the primordial monster known as Genesect. And let's just say right off the bat that if you didn't expect a Pokemon with a laser cannon strapped to its back to make the #1 spot, you clearly don't know what's up. But I suppose appearances aren't everything, so let's get into the nitty-gritty details, shall we? If you look at this Pokemon's stats, it's really nothing to build hype over at a glance. However, that's simply because you're not factoring in Genesect's download ability. This guarantees an attack boost every time the Pokemon is sent out and every turn after that. So if you plan on sticking around with Genesect, you're in for a havoc-wreaking treat. But alternatively, if you need to bail, you can do so with a +1 stab-boosted U-turn and still dominate depending on your foe. And if you're worried that you won't be able to pull this off in time, just give the guy a Choice Scarf, and it'll reset the next time you send him out after U-turn. Lastly, Genesect has access to an absurd amount of moves, and on that note, enough said. This bug bot is clearly overpowered. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember that I also have a Twitter and Twitch account, and you should follow me on those platforms if you want to be updated or just see more of my content. Speaking of more content, there's some more below for you to click on, and you could subscribe if you haven't done so already to stay up to date on all of my latest vids. That's all for now, guys, and until next time, peace.